Hello everyone, and this is Phoenix here, and today we're going to be doing a video response to Games of War. Now, somewhat recently, he has done a video on a topic called Games That We Missed. And basically what this topic is all about is about games that you were either aware of, but you just never played them until way later on, or games that you never heard of before, but until you recently got into them, and it's all like, hey, cool, that's awesome. Usually the reason why this is usually because you own one console, but then that one series is on the other console that you didn't have. Because let's be realistic here, most people usually didn't own more than one console at the time, or at least if you had both, then you were very lucky. So before I give out some of my examples, just so you have a basic idea of what I grew up with at the time, is that I actually first grew up with a Super Nintendo. It was actually given to us by my cousin back in '96, if I remember correctly. And then after that we had a PS1, but it was actually my dad's PS1, but I would always go over there every second weekend and play it, and then of course there were other times where I'd actually borrow the PS1 from him. But for the most part though, it usually stayed there. And then there was my N64, which I got in the year 2000. I just wanted to give that just right off the bat, just so you know what I grew up with within the early 90s, or late 90s and early 2000s. So anyways, here are my examples of games that I missed out on when they were in their prime. So the first one I'm going to mention here is the Sonic the Hedgehog series that are on the Genesis. Now obviously, like I said at the beginning, I grew up with a Super Nintendo, meaning that I didn't own a Genesis. So I could pretty much just mention just about any Genesis game, but I decided to pick Sonic the Hedgehog mostly because it was the first one that came to my attention. Obviously because it's very popular. And the first time I ever heard about it was actually when I saw the commercial for the Dreamcast, and it was for Sonic Adventure. So I was like, oh wow, that looks really cool, but I never seen a Dreamcast ever before. I only knew one person that had one though, but it was not someone I really talked to too much, so I didn't really know a whole lot about it. But until much later on, when they actually released this game on the PC, they actually had a similar thing to Steam back then. I think it was called Real Arcade. And basically they decided to release some old Sega games, and they released this, and eventually they did release this one as well. But yeah, it was only for a limited time, but it was still a pretty cool experience to actually play Sonic the Hedgehog for the first time, even though it wasn't on its original console, but hey, whatever, it works, right? So yeah, I eventually did play these ones back in 2002, I think it was. It may have been 2001, I forget the exact date, but it was around there. And then ever since then, I always wanted to check out the series and more into it. And that's when the GameCube, when I decided to get that system, it really helped me out, because that's why when I got these. So, it came with Sonic Hedgehog 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, 3D Blast, Spinball, and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which was also on that weird Steam service thing. And then, with this one, it actually made me discover more Sega systems I didn't knew about, like the Sega CD, and even the Sega Saturn, which I was vaguely familiar with, but not really too well. And of course, even the arcade game of Sonic the Fighters, which I never even knew about until this even came out. So because of then, this was actually very helpful for that I actually learned more about Sega consoles and reading through the history and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm actually very thankful to have these. So the next one I want to talk about is the Soulcalibur games. Well, at least the first few. And this one here was the first one I ever played, and that was Soulcalibur 2 on the GameCube, because that was the system that I had at the time. So this one was really, really awesome, as you would suspect, and the first time I ever heard about it was when I saw the commercial of it, and I remember the commercial was pretty cool. And of course I had Link in it, and I was all like, wow, Link in a fighting game outside of Super Smash Bros? I gotta have that. So that was one reason why I really wanted to get the GameCube with this game on it, and of course with many other games as well. But the one thing is that I do remember vaguely hearing about this one on the Dreamcast, but the thing was, I didn't have the system, and I only knew one person that had it, and that's how I heard about the game from. But other than that though, I kind of forgot about it, and then when I saw number 2, I kind of remembered about it, and I was like, oh yeah, fighting game with swords in it. So then eventually I wanted to play through this one though, but I didn't have a Dreamcast, and I didn't get one until I think it was 2010. And then after digging through some more stuff, I actually found out that this first Soulcalibur game was not even the first one. It was actually Soul Blade on the PS1. And now I did have a PS1 at the time, but I only rented a few games. I only owned I think about 3 games and 1 demo disc, and that was it. but I mostly rented a lot or borrowed games from people though. But this was one game that I just never even like knew about at the time. It was kind of weird. Then again, the name of it's a lot different, where instead of it being called Soulcalibur, it's called Soul Blade, and it did do well enough that they got a whole bunch of sequels. But hey, it was still something I just never heard about at the time, but I am very thankful that I was able to go back and play this one, because this one is still really great, and of course it has some amazing music, and I definitely love that opening theme. So the next game we're going to be talking about here is Final Fantasy VII. So this game took me about 10 years to finally getting around to, and the reason why that is because, well, first things first, when the game first came out, I was very, very young, so understanding an RPG at the time was just not going to happen. And then after that, there was the fact that the video store never had a copy available because, people were renting it like all the time. And then the other thing was that a lot of people I knew that did know like Final Fantasy and did have this game, which was most of them, because most people that I knew that knew Final Fantasy were usually talking about this game. So usually when I'd ask them if I can borrow a copy of it, they would always act like Gollum, like it was their precious, so, that also wasn't going to happen. So I was always knowing about this game, hearing many good things about it, but I was just never able to play it. And of course, I'd have to play it at my dad's house, so yeah, this game always eluded me for quite some time. Like I said, 10 years, because I first played this game in 2007. So while that time was spent, I was actually playing other Final Fantasy games until then, and the first one that I ever played was actually the first one on the NES. I actually got this with my NES at a yard sale years ago, back in 2001 or something like that, or somewhere around there. So that was the first one I ever played, and I actually really liked it, though I preferred Dragon Warrior a little bit, just because it was just much easier, but this one was still really good though. I did like the whole party thing and all that. And then the one that I played after that was actually 9. So the reason why this one was much more easier to get access to was mostly because the video store actually had a copy of it, and because it was the newest Final Fantasy game at the time, it just wasn't as rented out as much, which is kind of weird, I guess. But still, I eventually did play this one, and while I wasn't very good at it, I did enjoy it a hell of a lot. And then after that, these two games right here, I played them at a friend's house because I didn't own a PS2. I'm sure you can take a guess what game that is. And that is Final Fantasy X and X2. Although, weirdly enough, I played X2 before playing X1, but hey, whatever. I didn't really get far through X2 anyway, because that game is, hard to, figure out where the fuck you're going. So, yeah, I eventually did play these, though, on my friend's PS2, and then I eventually got them on my own when I got my own PS2 back in 2006. So then after that, I actually played a bit of the 6th game on emulation, because that was when I first discovered emulation, and I really wanted to play 6, which was actually 3, but, I didn't know that at the time. And then after that, I finally was able to play through this one. And, well, it was definitely worth the wait, 10 years. I mean, hey, it definitely took a long time to get there, but it was definitely a really enjoyable game. So this one right here is the SMT series, also known as, Shin Megami Tensei, with the non-abbreviated version. So this is a series I'm actually a huge fan of, but at the time it actually took me quite some time to finally get into them, and the reason why that is that the first time I ever heard of one was actually this one right here, Persona 3 FES, and I actually didn't know that there was a non-FES version. I just thought that was the actual title of it, but it's actually an enhanced version, which is pretty cool. But the thing was, at the time when this game came out, it was also around the time when I got my PS2, and I really wanted to get into it though, but the thing was, I could never find a copy of it, and also I was very focused into trying to beat Final Fantasy XII, and then there was also trying to get all the Xenosaga games. Which, by the way, getting number 2 was a real bitch for me, which is kind of weird, because now that one is easier to find, where the third one is a bitch to get. But anyways, that's a whole other discussion though. So yeah, I was really focused on trying to get those, and then eventually that was around the time when GameStop, or, EB Games was, getting rid of all their PS2 stuff, so I kind of missed out on this one. And same thing with Persona 4 as well, I didn't hear about it until much later on. And then I also found out that there's actually more to the series outside of Persona, and that's also when I heard about these two right here, Nocturne, Dead or Level Saga, then there's also, Devil Summoner, which I don't have a physical copy of, which, are definitely some great stuff. And there's even more outside of that too, but a lot of them are either only in Japan and, all that kind of stuff. But eventually the first one I ever played was actually this one. But the thing is that I played it on emulation because someone recommended me to go play this one because they said it was really, really good. So I played it and I really, really liked it, but the thing was, I really wanted to own it, but it was really expensive. Even back then, it was pretty damn expensive. But eventually I did get it for a pretty decent price, or at least better than most places, so I was pretty happy about that. And then, of course, you know, after playing that on that for emulation, I wanted to try all the other ones out, and eventually I did, and, well, I couldn't be any more happier because this series kicks ass. So this will be the last one I'm going to be mentioning here. So this is an Xbox 360 game that I got fairly recently, and that was Lost Odyssey, which is an amazing RPG. So the reason why it took me a while to get this is, well, as you know, I mostly had a PS3, and I mostly preferred the PS3 because it had a lot of those exclusive games that I really enjoy, you know, like the really crazy, like, Japanese ones, and then, of course, I also had, like, the big budget ones as well. So with that being said, I mostly preferred the PS3, and that wasn't to say that I hated the 360. I mean, yeah, I didn't like the whole Red Ring of Death thing. I thought that was just completely bullshit. But after when they got that fixed up, I was kind of interested, but the thing was, I didn't really know a lot of games on it outside of, you know, the stuff that everyone was playing on it, you know, with like Call of Duty, Madden, and Fable, and then there was Gears and Halo. Now, I'm not saying that those are bad games or anything like that. I'm just saying that they weren't really 100% interesting to me, so, you know, it just wasn't something I really wanted to invest in at the time. But until then, a friend of mine actually had Tales of Aspera, which is an amazing game, and that's something I do really want to get eventually, but that was one game that was interesting to me, and then of course I also heard about this game, and a lot of people said that this game was like, pretty much like a next level Final Fantasy game, so I was like, oh shit, well that's definitely awesome, I'll definitely have to look into that whenever I can. And I finally got around to it this year. So yeah, it definitely took me quite some time to get around to it, and well, it's definitely amazing and I'm not disappointed by it whatsoever. Alright, so those are just some examples of games I wanted to talk about, of games that I definitely missed out on, but then eventually I did go into them, and when I finally did, I just loved the hell out of them. So just for some other like small examples of other ones that were also have like the same case, there was also like Chrono Trigger, and then there was like Shining Force, and then there's the Yeast games, and there's Shadow Hearts, and there's like a shit ton of other ones, and of course one other one I will mention there, and this is a game I still have yet to play, but I definitely heard a lot of good things about it, and that's Grandia. And I really can't wait to get that game. It's just, you know, it's a work in progress, but eventually it will happen. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on this topic, and I have to say, definitely a really good topic that I don't really think about too much, but definitely a really interesting one, so thanks to Games of War for bringing up this idea. Definitely a really good one, and of course, like I said before, I recommend people to go check out his channel, and of course, if you really want to, you can also do your own video response to him, because I think that would definitely be interesting to see more of these. So anyways, that's my 2 cents, so hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and commenting.